Keegan Smith, welcome to the Call Room Road to Balboa. How are you doing this evening?
Doing really well. Thank you. How are you doing?
Doing really good. It was a pleasure to not only meet you over the weekend, but also see you take home a dub in Charlotte. What did it mean not only to qualify for Foot Locker again, but to do so with a win on your way to San Diego?
It means a lot. I appreciate it. Yeah, that's a course that I've been running, I think. So this is my 8th consecutive year I've ran it. I grew up running the Foot Locker regionals, doing all the age group races, and then obviously qualifying as a freshman was huge. But to really end on the highest of notes and win it this year was the cherry on top to the 8 years that I've spent there. So it was incredible.
Do you feel like you know every nook and cranny of that course after running it for your 8th time?
I would sure hope so. I mean, from running the 9-year-old 3K course to the 13-year-old 5K and then up to the high school 5K. I would sure hope so. But yeah, it's a course that I've fallen in love with. I mean, all my Thanksgivings for the last 8 years have been there, and you just kind of really fall in love with a place like McAlpine and Charlotte. So
For you this year, going into it, obviously you had run the 14:23 the week before. You've really been picking up some momentum and steam. Do you feel like, as well as with the 7 years prior of running on that course, do you feel like you were the most prepared person there when you stepped on the start line? And how much confidence did you draw from running that course 7 years prior? I'm assuming you're the only athlete who was in that position.
yeah, I mean, it's actually funny that you say that. Going into Foot Locker South, I was actually the most nervous I've been before any race this whole season. Um, I usually don't get nervous before races just because my mindset is not, so wound up in the results, but rather just giving my best. But I really was nervous going into this weekend just because, I've felt like last year I was in the position to qualify for nationals and I didn't, and it's super tough to qualify for nationals. I don't think you can overlook that. So yeah, I felt a little nervousness coming into this race, even though I did what I did at NXR. To me, it didn't really matter. It was still, you have to go conquer McAlpine on the day, and luckily I did. But it was tough. It wasn't easy.
Speaking deeper into that, it's fascinating just how hard it is to make it out of the regions and just how good the state of running in America is. Like, for instance, Manny he plays fifth at NXN last year and he placed 11th at the Midwest Regional this year, which kind of broke my heart a little bit because I love Manny, really wanted to see him make it. Or a guy like, Cole Mathisen, even the year Cole won, I want to say he placed, it was either at NXR or Foot Locker Midwest, he placed like fourth in his region and then went on to win the whole thing. And you spoke to that aspect of having to get it done on the day, but elaborating on that, how true do you think that is, whether it's a regional meet or a national meet? Like, you can be in the fitness, you can be in the shape to win it or qualify, but it's a different thing to actually do it and execute on the day.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, that's honestly what NXR was to me. It was just I just had a day that day. I mean, there's no other way to put it besides I was fit. My coach had me ready, and I mean, by the grace of God, I just ran super fast. But I think this year, especially, there's not really any clear front runners. Anyone could win. It just depends on who takes charge that day and who seizes the moment. But yeah, it's so wide open nowadays. We're in a few years back, it was you have these 5 guys, and like it's going to be one of those 5 guys. But I don't think this year or a few years previous you could say that. So that's why I'm really excited for nationals, because I think it's a wide open race and anything can happen.
We'll get into your history and backstory in the sport, where you were obviously a remarkably accomplished athlete, but then you qualify for Foot Locker your freshman year, and then the past few years have struggled to make it back there. And I think maybe there was some publicity early on, and then it's kind of like tapered, and now it's like shot back up with all the things that you're doing and up to, and all the remarkable results. How have you kind of handled the ebbs and flows of pressure and attention over the years?
I could have a very long answer, but I think just to simply put, I trusted God and I trusted His plan for me, and it was obviously full of ups and downs, unexpected twists and turns, but I trusted Him and I trusted the people that were close in my circle, and that includes my parents, my coaches, my teammates, everyone really that is involved in my career, inside and outside of running. I trusted them, and I got through it. But yeah, it's crazy you say that, because this was really the first week that I was tested on that. Running really well at NXR and then having all the publicity going into Foot Locker South, and there was that kind of nerves of like, oh, it could happen again. Like I could, go sell the bag. But I didn't, and that was a huge, confidence booster. Just saying like, hey, I've worked past that. That was freshman and sophomore year me, but this is senior year me, and I'm different. And just to be able to handle that, it meant a lot.
How much relief did you feel when you crossed the finish line with that mindset and those feelings going into the race? Was it excitement when you crossed the line? Was it relief? Take me through the emotion of checking the box, and maybe it felt like a really long 3 years since your freshman year. I'm sure you've grown a lot as an athlete in person.
Yeah, I mean, it was incredible. I was kind of shocked in the moment because I was so far back with like 200 meters to go, and really, I could have just been content to just sit in my spot that I was at because it was a qualifying spot. But I think all of the struggles I've gone through and all of the doubt I've faced, I wanted to make sure that I made my statement clear, and getting the win was all the more bittersweet. But yeah, it definitely felt like a weight was lifted off my shoulders. I still do have a chip on my shoulder just because you're always going to have something to fight for. But I really did a lot of research into my why after sophomore year, and junior year just worked and worked and worked and worked, and then to finally see it start paying off this senior year has been super great, super amazing, and I'm very grateful for it.
Take me through that why. What did you come up with in that exploration phase?
It was a lot. I mean, I'll tell you, after Foot Locker South, my sophomore year, I'd placed 13th, really close to qualifying again. But I remember coming home, and when I got home, I just went outside. It was late at night, and I just cried. Like I went outside, I sat on the driveway, and I just cried because I don't usually cry, but it was really just upsetting to know that um, I could have qualified, I could have made it, but I didn't. And it just, all the pressure just finally got to me, and I just had to let it all out. And ever since that moment, it's really been just, why am I still doing this? Like, obviously, I was super successful in my prep career, and then obviously as a freshman, super successful. And I was just having fun at the time. I wasn't really like focused on why am I doing it and stuff. But I think that's a big part of it is you have to have fun. You got to keep it fun. When it becomes like a job, then you're not going to perform your best. And I really lost track of having fun while competing. I'm a really competitive person, so I think that's super important to have fun while competing. But yeah, at the end of the day, it was just I love the sport and I love meeting people in the sport. I love getting to show people my talents. And God gave me these talents for a reason, so I got to go use them to glorify Him and to spread it to other people. I hope to inspire many younger runners in the generations to come.
You mentioned racing on pressure and attention for the first time in quite some time this past weekend at Foot Locker South. Now, as you head into true championship season with NXN and then Foot Locker the following week, NXN this Saturday, Foot Locker next Saturday, is it almost nice to have a little bit of a dress rehearsal with Foot Locker South of like, okay, I did really well underneath the attention and pressure. It doesn't really matter how much more gets put on me. Like, I know I can do it because I just did it.
Yeah, I mean, and I think you could see that in a few of my races junior year as well. But I think in terms of Foot Locker South and like that experience this past year, um, it's different almost than a national meet just because here in the South, like I was really expected to go out there and do well after my NXR performance. Where in nationals, I don't really even have any goals for nationals yet just because I was so focused on qualifying for nationals this whole season that I didn't really like think, well, what if I make it, what do I do? But I also think that I'm not the heavy favorite going into nationals. I definitely have a shot, but for the South region, it was more of you're the guy. You need to go out there and capitalize. So I felt a little bit more pressure. Where now going into the national season, I'm just kind of feeling free and fun and glad that I'm there.
I also had the privilege this past weekend of meeting your coach, who I think told me that he's coached four or something like that, other athletes to Foot Locker in the past before, maybe most notably and recently, Jake Renfree, who placed second at Foot Locker back in his day. Take me through your relationship with your current high school coach, who he is, the accolades he's accomplished, and through his success in the sport, how reassuring that is to you as now you're trying to do big things, knowing that he's done them with other athletes in the past and probably knows a thing or two, probably knows what he's doing when he's coaching you.
Yeah, Coach O'Neill's great. He's a quiet kind of guy, but he's also very very driven and determined. I mean, I don't think I know a single coach in the entire country that does as much research or looks into things as much as he does. I gave him a gift today during one of our blocks during school, and he really liked it. But while I went in to give him the gift, he was literally looking at NXN footage from the past 3 years, just trying to figure out the course because he's never been. So I mean, I think that goes to show how much of a research guy he is, but it also shows how much he cares. I mean, he really does care. He cares about me. He cares about our team. This year we had an opportunity to qualify as a team for NXN, so a lot of our work was, based off that. And we ended up winning the state championship, which was a huge step in the right direction. But yeah, Coach O'Neill and I, we have a very good relationship. One that I can tell him anything, and he can tell me anything, and I trust him. And we've worked really well together in these last few months. I'm preparing for this, and I mean, this is what all the work's been towards, is these meets right here. So we're gonna put it together as best we can. And yeah, he's coached a lot of good guys, so I'm just gonna be one of the many.
As much as how much has he changed the training over the years? And do you ever ask him about some of the other 4 guys who have made Foot Locker, what they did, how what you're doing stacks up to them, or is it pretty separated?
Yeah, I mean, I also have a private coach that I go through usually postseason cross with in indoors and postseason track. So he's also played a huge role in my life. But in terms of Coach O'Neill, it's more like, what am I doing? We'll talk about the occasional, Jake's race or stuff like that. But he does a good job of kind of keeping it on me. And really every year is different. I mean, you look at a guy like Jake, like that was 2019, different people, different conditions. And we don't really want to get too bogged down into comparing because it's cross country. But yeah, he's done a good job, and my other coach has done a good job too, getting me ready.
What's a normal Sunday? I don't know how you structure your weeks, Monday through Sunday, Sunday through Saturday, whatever you do. What's a normal week of training look like for you? Can you take me through it?
Yeah, so we'll do morning practice on Monday and Wednesday. Then we'll do an afternoon lift and then a double after the lift. Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday are just easy days, and then Saturday is usually our race or our long runs. Our team takes Sunday off, but I like to go 7 days, so I'll do like an easier shakeout on Sunday. But yeah, the morning practices can be pretty brutal because I live 45 minutes away from school. So I mean, waking up at 4:45 to go to the track and work out, and then only to get home at like 7 or 7:30 because we're lifting and doubling after school. So it can get pretty tiring, especially hard to keep up on homework and schoolwork and still getting the right amount of sleep. But I wouldn't change the schedule. I really like it, and getting the hard sessions out of the way early is super helpful.
High mileage guy, low mileage guy, where would you put yourself on that category?
I would say I'm pretty high for kids my age. I mean, I know there's guys that just do like crazy stuff, but this year I peaked at 75, a few weeks actually. So yeah, that was the max. But I spent a lot of the earlier races in the season just building through, or not building through, training through those races and like still building my fitness to where I didn't really taper until NXR. So I mean, it really showed how the taper just affected my performance. But yeah, now we're finally in that tapering phase, and hopefully I can run fast because of it.
For you, were there any workouts you did leading into NXR? I mean, 14:23 is blazing. Was there anything you did in training that you walked off the track or the grass or some sort of session or tempo run and you thought, oh man, like maybe I can run a 14:23 at Wake Med?
I mean, honestly, I can't really. I've had great workouts this year, but I mean, in terms of like right before NXR, it was just a good day. And we do the Michigan once or twice a year, so that one's pretty rough. Oh, there was so we have a local cross country course here in Knoxville, and it's pretty rough. Victor Ashe Park. It's got a bunch of hills and one big hill actually that kind of simulates the NXR course. And we did 4 by mile on that, and I think I closed my last mile in like 4. The last mile was downhill, but I think I closed in like 4:22 or something. Like after the 3 previous miles, which weren't slow, they were like 4:40, 4:50. But that one was pretty telling, just because it was on grass. It was with hills, and it was pretty similar to the NXR course that I run a few weeks later.
For you, obviously, and we'll get into this in a short moment, your history and backstory in the sport and how fast you were at such a young age. But going into this season, I don't think many people were talking about Keegan Smith being a factor, and I don't think a lot of people anticipated this conversation leading into Foot Locker that he'd be regional champion, one of the top guys going into it. Was it kind of nice though that your coming out party wasn't until NXR and that you could go throughout most of your season pretty much, you know, without anyone really paying attention or talking about you, at least from a nation standpoint? I'm sure from the state standpoint, people are talking about you, but if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean that also just added to the determination and the chip on my shoulder not being ranked because I always knew I was capable of it. I mean, All American in the indoor mile this past winter, and then All American in the outdoor 2 mile. Like, I was doing really good stuff, but not really getting credit for it, and that's kind of been the whole story since freshman year. So, just kind of building that determination and that fight. Just rolled into cross country season, and as each race went on, I was like, man, I just still want to prove everyone that I'm still one of the top guys, and no matter how rough the previous years have gone, I can still compete. And I think college recruiting played a huge part in that as well, which I'm sure we'll get to later on. But that played a huge role in my story and the big switch. But yeah, it's been kind of nice just to continue to have that chip. And like I said, I still do. I don't think anything really changed after NXR or Foot Locker South. So it's really great, but at the end of the day, it's what matters is what you do on the course. So all the publicities only go so far.
Keegan, take me through your start in the sport of running and also what your first impressions of the sport were when you got started.
Yeah, so I give my big brother Riley the credit for this. We were both big time basketball players. He played up until 8th grade, and so did I. But he wanted to stay in shape for basketball going into the winter season. So he tried out for cross country, I think, in 6th or 7th grade. And it turned out he wasn't that bad at it. So the following spring, my parents signed me up for track. And, it was like 100, 200-meter sprint. And I was like a second grader. But I was like, well, I kind of like it. It's fun. I get to go be competitive. I get to race with myself, not necessarily being surrounded by a team, but just really what I can do. And I really enjoyed that. And then that summer, that would have been 2015, I joined a competitive youth track team, Knoxville Youth Athletics, that goes to the AAU Junior Olympics every year. So I believe that year was in Virginia Beach. And I went to that, and that was my first taste of real competitive big running, at least on the track. And I was like, man, this is awesome. This is really fun. I think I have a gift, so let me see how far I can go. And then that cross country season, I was in 3rd grade. It was my first year of elementary school cross country. I won the state meet, and I also ran, I think, 5:20 on grass. So I was like, man, maybe I am pretty good at this. And then from then on, it's just been it's been a roller coaster. But yeah, it wouldn't have started if it wasn't for my brother needing conditioning for basketball. But I'm definitely pleased I made the right decision and chose to stick with the sport.
What was the first moment where you realized that you were special in the sport of running and probably had a big future in it?
I mean, there could be so many. So
As
I
far
won
back as you can remember, what was that inception, that moment?
I guess it would be the very first developmental meet I did that summer when I first started in the competitive track program. I ran the 1500, and I think I ran 5:20 something, 27, as a second grader going into 3rd grade. And I mean, I lapped kids, and it was like a 3-lap race, and I was like, holy crap, that maybe I'm pretty good at this. And then obviously going to Junior Olympics and running well there. But yeah, the following 3 years, I won 3rd grade, 4th grade, and 5th grade cross country state titles. So I was like, yeah, I definitely should stick with this and train harder and take it more seriously.
You won 21 national championships before your freshman year. You set a bunch of national records. We talked about Foot Locker South, obviously, extensively in this conversation. You won 3 of those back in the day before high school. You were a stud, massive stud back in the day. And I feel like through those experiences, I'm sure you gained a lot of wisdom and knowledge and experience on competition and how to compete for the win because you were doing it so often. How much do you feel like that has benefited you specifically now as a senior, as you're looking to win more and more races going back even, 5, 6, 7 years ago to younger Keegan who did it all the time and probably has a lot of wisdom and experience from winning so many races so consistently.
Yeah, I think, I would consider myself at least to be one of the more mature and experienced guys in the country, which I think can play a huge role in terms of, running well on race day. Because sometimes it's not always who's the fastest on the line, but it's who wants it more, who's more experienced, who, has a better strategy and all that stuff. But all these years I've been racing, there's a lot of other guys that are tops in the country that I've been racing with for that long of a time. I mean, I think of guys like T.J. Hansen, Tommy Latham, um, Jason Parra last year graduated. I mean, so many guys just been running since that age, competing with me, and I think it just goes to show that the more experience you have, the more beneficial it can be. When you get to the bigger moments, which I think honestly, that's the biggest thing. Is I have really good experience in the big moments, and a lot of times when you first get to the big stage, you kind of freak out and panic. But those days for me were back in 6th or 7th grade, so I kind of got through that, and then by the time I was a freshman, I was able to actually execute on those big days and big stages just because of all the experience I had in my prep career.
Which of the 21 national titles mean the most looking back on them?
It's one of two. So one would be my first outdoor AU Junior Olympic Championship, which was in the 10-year-old 3K. I was 9 at the time, and I ran 9:59, which was 4 seconds off the national record. So I was like, that was my first big win at Junior Olympics, and I was like so happy, so proud. And then the other one would probably be my 8th grade year, the AAU Cross Country National Championships down in Tallahassee, Florida. I raced with a lot of guys. Tommy Latham was in that race. Jason was in that race. TJ was in that race. Benjamin Anderson was in that race. Maximus Irby Skinner was in that race. I mean, so many guys that are like top dogs now were all in that race in 8th grade. And I ran 11:49 for the 4K. So that one was really special because it was like my last big AAU race because it was 8th grade cross country. So really my first and my last are the two that I enjoyed the most.
For you, looking back on your years in middle school, are you obviously everything works out, for the best, and I believe God makes everything happen for a reason. But in hindsight, are you happy that things that you were so good so early, or do you feel like it was almost a curse in the sense of like it just set unrealistic expectations going into high school?
For me, it was just it was just what I did. Like it was almost a part of me that was, go out there, compete, and run really fast. Obviously, I had some crazy fast 8th grade PRs, and like obviously the pressure was going to be, well, how do you handle high school when you're racing guys that are 4 years older than you, have gone through puberty, all that stuff. And I think I answered the bell pretty well freshman year. It was sophomore year where it kind of all came crashing down, but I think the experience that I built through the prep career. I wouldn't want to have it any other way, just because it really got me to love the sport. And it also taught me that winning isn't everything. You hear the stories of Simone Biles or Michael Phelps who won countless gold medals in the Olympics, and it wasn't enough for them either. And I didn't really learn that until halfway through my prep career, where I was like, it's not really all about winning. Like you can win all you want, but what matters is how you affect the people around you, and how you encourage and inspire those that want to run and maybe aren't really ready, but you kind of show them that it's a fun thing, and if you do it, it's the right decision.
Such a wise kid right here. Your parents raised you very, very well. Most people your age do not speak like that. So, I guess speaking on more of the wisdom and where I'm sure some of it comes from, you have mentioned a few times your academics, and you mentioned your crazy schedule there a minute ago. I know academics play a massive role in what you do and where you go to school. Can you take me through that side of your life and how you balance both, running at such a high national class level while also, going to a very prestigious high school and, it seems like taking every AP course in the books. And as I found out on Saturday, having a 4.0 and in Spanish, and you're killing it. How do you balance it all?
It's tough. It's really hard. I mean, I think being a student athlete is one of the hardest things you can do as not only a high schooler but as a teenager. I mean, as a growing person to put yourself through so much work on the track or on the course and then in the classroom. It's really hard, and I think just recognizing that it's hard is the first step in accomplishing it. But like I said, I'm a competitive guy, and that also translates into the classroom. I like to give my best in everything I do, whether that's writing an essay in English class or solving math problems, on the board in calculus class, or running, 1200 tempo on the track. Like everything I do, I just want to, do my best, and that's what satisfies me at the end of the day. But it's really hard. I mean, especially going into this national cycle of NXN and Foot Locker. My last day of school was November 21st, and I'm going to school 4 times until midterms, which are not until December 16th. So I had definitely had to have a sit down with my counselors and teachers and just say, like, I'm missing like so many days. I'm only going to be in school for 4 days in the coming month. And then as soon as I get back from San Diego that Monday, I have a midterm in AP Government. So it's gonna be a heck
How
of a
cooked are
ride.
you?
Well, luckily AP Gov it's not too hard of a class for me, and the teacher used to coach cross country. She was an assistant, so hopefully I'm not cooked in that class. But calculus is going to be a rough one because I think missing that class is not easy just because the concepts are so hard. But yeah, calc will be hard. Spanish should be fine. Stats should be fine. But yeah, I mean we'll see. That's the best thing about kind of signing and committing and just getting it all over with, so you just don't have to worry about it. But um, it's been tough, man. Like the ACT, having to juggle that too, because you got to find free weekends, and I only have about like 2 or 3 free weekends that actually work with the ACT in my whole year. Um, but I think that's one of the things my school does well is they really prioritize you wanting to be your best, whether it's in school, in the arts, in the robotics, or in sports, and being able to do both has been a blessing, and I'm super grateful to do pretty well in both.
You mentioned that teacher, formerly coach cross country, the teacher of the midterm on Monday after Foot Locker. If you win Foot Locker, would she let you skip it to reward
Yeah,
you?
we have to take our AP exam midterms. So if it's an AP class, we got to take the midterm. But I mean, it would be nice to win Foot Locker. Maybe she'd be a little easier on the grading, but I still want to take the exam. I mean, I want to do well on the exam, get some college credit, and go into CU with a lot of credit and hours and stuff. So, but I'm not worried about that right now. Right now, it's all about NXN, and I'm taking care of business this weekend.
Speaking of your commitment to CU, we mentioned academics, you mentioned college credit, etc. Take me behind that decision to commit to Colorado, and what made that school stand out from all the rest that you were looking into and being recruited by.
Colorado. Wow. I tell everyone that I visited first time in 7th grade, and I always tell people, when I visited in 7th grade, God took my heart and He left it in Boulder. I mean, there is not really any other place that I wanted to go besides there after that moment, and kind of everything's been a culmination of that first sight, first love, and just everything fell in line after that. I mean, I know it's been so crazy, like just the change with Coach Wetmore, obviously, who I committed to and who recruited me, and that was the coaching staff that I was like, this is who I want to coach me, and then obviously having Carlson come out there, it's been super super duper insane, and then all the new NCAA rules. Like sometimes I just wish I was 2 or 3 years older and I didn't have to experience any of this stuff, and I could just be there. But yeah, Colorado, I think the biggest thing is, my dad's from Colorado Springs, so we have family out there in Denver and Colorado Springs. And I find running really freeing there. You get to be out in God's creation, and it's just so beautiful. All the trails, all the dirt roads. Um, I find it freeing, and that's really what I need going into college after all this past of, running in Knoxville and Tennessee and stuff, just to kind of restart and refresh. But yeah, I think the campus is pretty. The guys are amazing. Coach Carlson's great, and we can get more into my relationship with him because he was at Tennessee, which has been in my backyard, so I got to know him there. But yeah, Colorado's it's been the place since day one, and it's just making dreams come true by going there next fall.
Speaking on the Hoka front, which we can get into in a minute, one of the athletes who runs for Colorado, a very, very close friend, he's been on the podcast multiple times, Cole Mathieson, also Hoka NIL athlete, also I know very outspoken about his faith, as are you. One Foot Locker, there's a lot of connecting dots between you two. What's your relationship like with him, and what's it like to know that you're going to be teammates with not just amazing athletes like him, but also just like really good people who care about you outside of the sport, like I know Cole does.
Cole's awesome. I mean, I could talk 40 minutes or more. I could talk forever about how great of a person he is, athlete and student, and just person overall. But I really do give him credit for me sticking with my decision. One of the first things I kept in touch with him so much over that transition between Coach Wetmore and Coach Carlson. Just like, hey man, are you going to stay? Like, what are you doing? Because I really wanted to be with him. I think one of the key moments in our relationship was after the New Balance 2 mile my junior year. I stunk. I ran like 4:30 the first mile, then like 5 something. I think I ran 9:20 or something. It was terrible. And I just went over and crouched down and just laid down. I was like so upset. And he was actually in that race, and he just came over to me and he gave me a big pat on the chest and said, "It's all right, man. Like you're gonna do great. Just go focus on the mile tomorrow." And I still have a photo from that moment. And I ended up running really well in the mile, running a PR and winning my heat the next day. But he's a great person. He was one of the first people. Actually, he was the first person I reached out to when Hoka reached out to me before NXR. Of just like, hey, dude, like, what are your thoughts? I knew you've been running with them for a while. What shoes do you wear? And I mean, he's so helpful. He gave me all I needed to know. And I mean, everything that he's done, I hope to follow in his footsteps, just because he set such a good role model. Every time I visit Boulder, he's been awesome. Just the success he's had and all the things he's done. Super inspiring, man. He's such a great guy. I'm so pleased to be his teammate next year, and I'm happy to see what the future holds for us.
Diving deeper into the Hoka NIL world, take me behind that decision, ultimately why you decided to become a Hoka NIL athlete, and what's it mean to be a part of the Hoka brand, the Hoka family, and even, tying it to Foot Locker, run Foot Locker, which they now sponsor, and, a lot of cool connecting pieces there with you.
Yeah, so I guess kind of my start to the Hoka story is a few weeks ago, my friend Billy Saveco, who you probably know, the Toad.
Of course.
I went to his Toad 2 mile in Nashville, which I actually live 3 hours away from Nashville, so it was a 6 hour round trip journey. But I just went to watch and support, and I really wanted him to know that while I was going into this next, indoor season, I didn't have anyone to run for, in terms of like kits or anything. So I was like, hey man, the Toad life, we've been friends for a long time. You followed my career. You know me really well. You know what kind of person I am. Like, could I possibly rep the Toad for indoor? And he was so happy and thrilled. He was like, yeah, man, we'll make it work, whatever. And obviously going to his meet was super fun. We got to shoot some content and stuff. But yeah, I think he ended up talking to the Hoka guy and kind of setting things up. And I actually got the Hoka offer before NXR, midweek before NXR. And I think that was the biggest like sway point or persuasion point into signing with them, was that they did it before NXR. Because I mean, a lot of people are going to think like, oh, you just ran 14:23 and like you're this and that, so like of course they're going to offer you. But it was actually before NXR, which is when I was still considered like a nobody. Or so it was really helpful to know that they believed in me. I think that was the biggest thing, was Hoka believed in me before I did all the fast stuff. And that goes a long way, especially nowadays. I mean, so many brands are just focused about the money and brand and all that stuff. But I think Hoka really wants the best for their athletes, and to have that belief in me, I just felt like I had to go show them that they made the right choice, and hopefully I did that going into NXR. And then in terms of Foot Locker South, like there's also the added pressure of if you don't make nationals, like it's kind of like the brand, so that would not look really good on that. Wouldn't look too good on Hoka, but I think at the end of the day, it was like they believed in me, so I got to have some belief in myself and belief that I can go execute and make nationals. So I'm super pumped. I heard from Cole and a few others that last year was really fun and awesome experience. I know they'll put on a good show, and yeah, I just can't wait. I love Balboa and San Diego and all the above. So Hoka's going to do a really good job here.
talking about Foot Locker specifically, you can also talk about NXN if you want to, but with this podcast series being geared towards Foot Locker, what would it mean? How much of a storybook ending for you would it be to win, bring one home, and specifically with the context of a lot of your story and career that you've shared with me and our audience today, from middle school all the way up to qualifying for the meet your freshman year, missing out sophomore, junior year, coming back as a senior. What are the emotions even when you think about dreaming and visualizing crossing the tape, the finish line at Balboa Park on December 14th in first place?
Yeah, I mean, like I said earlier, focused on NXN this week, but thinking about Foot Locker, um, I haven't really thought too much about that. I mean, it would really be amazing to win, but I think more the fact of just having fun and going to compete. I mean, I spent so much time and effort just trying to get back to that course because I wanted to try it again because I don't think I ran it super well at freshman year. But I think, just getting there is one thing, and whatever happens, happens. Anyone can put themselves in a position to win. That's what I'm going to look to do, is just put myself up there in the mix and see what happens. I know that course. I've experienced it, so I know where the harder parts are and where to push and stuff like that, which is good. But, yeah, at the end of the day, I mean, if I were to end it on a national championship at Hoka Foot Locker, I think it would end the chapter of my high school cross country career on a good note, and yeah, I would be super blessed. I mean, if that's what God has in store, then thanks be to God. But I'm just super excited to go out there and run, and whatever happens, happens. But I think having fun is going to be the biggest thing this year.
Keegan, final serious question for you, man. I've loved this conversation. Wrapping it up with some advice from the man himself, the scholar himself, the thinker himself, Keegan Smith. What would be the final takeaway message that you want to leave with the audience today?
Yeah, so this is actually a thing that I mentioned in my signing speech. On our signing day, each of us student athletes were given some time to, share a few words, and I gave a little 2.5 minute speech. I'm not going to repeat exactly what I said, but the gist of it was, what do you talk about in terms of legacy? Like, what does a legacy mean to me? I think legacy is different for each person. Every athlete kind of has their own way of looking at legacy, but to me, I said, my legacy isn't my wins. It's not my times. It's not all the accolades. It's rather what I helped create, what I helped build, and what I helped lead. I mean, you look at my team, my program that we have at our school, we went from not so great to winning the state championship. And I think that matters more than any of the personal accolades I could have, just because I really helped lead that, and it was super special. But I mean, all these personal accolades and stuff, they're all great. No one can take them away. But I guess my biggest piece of advice is do it because you have fun, and do it because you have the gift. Do it because God wants you to do it, and do it to really make people happy and feel that they have meaning in the sport. And yeah, just do it because you've been given the gift to do it. I mean, don't do it for the wins or anything. That all comes second. What comes first is glorifying God, and using your abilities to glorify Him and spread it to everyone across the country.
Amazing. Absolutely love it. Keegan, final question for you. The question I ask every single guest on every single episode. You're smirking, so I know you're prepared. You're ready for it. If you had Gordon Ramsay coming over to your house for dinner, what would you choose to make for him?
So I'm Italian, so it's going to be some kind of pasta. I can tell you that. Whether it's red sauce with Italian sausage, linguine, stuff like that, or just penne with green olives and just butter and oil and all that stuff. It's going to be a pasta, I can tell you that. But whether it's with red sauce, white sauce, or just butter, I don't really know. My dad, it's actually funny that I was prepared for this question, but the reason I was smirking is because my dad's been watching the Gordon Ramsay show where he goes all across the world, trying these weird things. And the only thing that I could picture when thinking about this question was the most recent one we saw, which he was trying to milk a goat in Greece or something. And I mean, he just got so mad. He was like Gordon Ramsay, he was so mad he couldn't do it. So maybe if I learned how to milk a goat, he would be impressed. But he wouldn't be impressed with my pasta making, that's for sure.
Keegan, thank you again for taking the time to chop it up on the podcast. Again, it was awesome to meet you last week. Excited to hang more in San Diego, and really appreciate your testimony about all that you've overcome in the sport, your openness to share wisdom about not just the success, but also the struggles. And then, your faith and how that shines through and how you speak and how you act and how you glorify God through this platform that running has given you. And also just, through your performances on the track, on the grass. So keep crushing it. You have a big fan of me, and I'm excited to see not just what you do at Balboa Park on December 14th, but all the things in the future. So keep crushing it, and excited for hopefully many more conversations on the podcast down the road, recapping
Yeah.
your success both on and off the track.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And if I could throw a question back at you, is that okay?
Hit me.
So the question, I know obviously you've had a career in running prior to this. What made you want to, get into the broadcasting side of things, kind of the media part of things, to really like showcase the sport?
I will give you the short version, which I'm a rambler, so it might turn into the longer version. One, I was not very good back in high school. I was like very dedicated, but I never really quite had the results to show for the amount of work and training I put in. So I think this kind of stemmed as a result of my passion and love for the sport and wanting to stay around in the sport, but not necessarily having Keegan Smith level swagger to run 14:23 and run at the next level. So that's one piece of it. The bigger piece, though, is the reason the podcast started is because in middle school was really passionate about the sport of running, was putting time and effort into it, but didn't really know how to take my skills to the next level because I never really had like a good coach. So I went to the library, checked out a bunch of books, got an email, started cold emailing coaches, athletes, asking them questions on how to get better at the sport, really how to excel within it. And through that process, I feel like I actually became like a pretty decent runner in middle school. Now I use that pretty good because you ran 9:18 as an eighth grader. I don't think I could have run that for a mile. So through that process, I think I became aware that, not every kid should have to go to the library and create an email and cold email coaches and athletes, and that there aren't enough resources in the sport for those who want to get good. So that's where the inception of the podcast began back in eighth grade. And then I started going into my sophomore year of high school with the idea in mind of like, I want to create a platform where I interview the best athletes in the sport of running, and through them sharing their stories and insights like you did today. Hopefully, anyone out there can go on Spotify, go on Apple Podcasts, go on YouTube, look up the Running Effect, and, find 450 conversations with people from all different walks and backgrounds of life who are all incredibly successful at what they do. And hopefully from that, apply the wisdom and tools that they got from that guest into their, not just their running, but also their life. So I give you kind of the long version, but I struggle with the short version.
Oh, no,
So
it's good.
yeah,
It's
that's
good.
the background.
I know we're running a little long here, but I just want to say to all the listeners and to yourself that, when I was a sophomore and I was going through that time of what's the why, or even how did this happen? Like, how did I go from being the freshman to being the sophomore? It was actually one of your clips, I believe on Instagram, that really started changing, my perspective of things. And I remember it was a coach, and he said the hardest year of running is the year after you get good. That's the hardest time. And I think listening to that just totally changed perspective. And that was listening to your stuff. So, obviously it's worked wonders in my life and my career. I believe it really helped me get to where I am today. And for all the listeners, like, that's just the power that Dominic has with his platform. And that's why I'm super grateful to be on it and hopefully share my words as well.
Much love, dude. That means a lot. Hearing that piece of content impacted you, and simply put, that's why I do what I do. And yeah, I think we've talked about faith and God in this conversation. I feel like this is my calling and my mission, and to hear stories like that reaffirms that I'm on the right journey, on the right path. So I'll keep trying to have the best conversations possible I can, and you keep running as fast as you are and having fun with it. And I'm excited to see where both of those endeavors take us both.
Will do. I'll see you in San Diego in 2 weeks.